any second. I'll start talking and I'll cue you in when I'm done with this intro and your bio.
Okay, awesome.
Hi, everybody. Look at me, the little old lady hitting the screen again. I know, you have had enough. Well, tough. I'm coming back swinging, you guys. This is Comic Spot. This is the interview show where we care about you, the comedy customers. Whether you're a comedian, brand new, a legend, it doesn't matter. You get on here, you find out who's in the business, who's new, who's been around a long time. You find out if you like them. You find out if you want to go to their shows. You find out if you want to hit their social media, buy their merchandise, all of that. You know, I did this for a few reasons. The main one is I've stood out of comedy clubs at the marquees, and I've seen people step up to the marquee, look at a still picture, thinking they're doing their homework, their due diligence, stare at a picture. Like if I'm on a picture at a marquee like this, how do you know if you want to go to my comedy show? You don't get to see me live like you're seeing my guest today. You don't get to hear her talk. You don't get to hear her be herself. You don't find out if she likes Dalmatians. You don't know if she likes geckos. But here, you get to find out all the stuff. So you know if she's the kind of person you want to have a beer with or vote for president. Yeah, that's right. That's how Obama got into office, by being real. Let's be real, folks. All right. Okay. So now that you know I'm a Democrat, let's get to the show. So I'm going to read. I'm really good at reading what I find on the internet if they give me permission. And my guest today is sitting here waiting for me. Her name is Jeaux King, Jeaux space King. All right. That's who she is over there now, you guys. So she's for real, dog. She is a force. But let me read you the intro off her website. It says, "Where laughter is your currency." That's her quote. With her quick-witted humor, Jeaux has skyrocketed to your list of favorite comedians, leaving audiences in stitches with her brilliant insights into the absurdities of adulting. From navigating the wild roller coaster of parenting, amen, to the joys and challenges of being a wife, daughter, and total boss veteran, Jordan brings the house down. I've seen it with her unstoppable wit and Southern Belle quotables. I can't read without my glasses, but I can't find them. Hailing from San Antonio, Texas, but taking Las Vegas and surrounding areas near you by storm, Jeaux King is quickly becoming a house name and comedy club favorite, that's for sure. But your tickets to catch her live now. Buy your tickets to catch her live now. How's that for an old lady reading? Yeah. I've never gotten through an introduction perfectly. And you know what? People love me for being real. So screw it.
She's like, no, take twos. That's what you get.
Yeah. You can't expect a 72-year-old to be perfect. Stop it. Have we seen nothing yet? Yesterday, we had a guy that's serving our country take 19 seconds to stare at a camera. I think I did pretty good.
Yes, you did.
So welcome.
We celebrate you.
Yes. Welcome to the show right now. Somebody I'm so excited to have on Comic Spot. I love her and you will too. Jeaux King. Woo!
Everybody.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited to have you. Let's talk some fluffer nutter first before we get into your life. Tell me what's been going on, personally, human-like, lately through the pandemic and post-pandemic. What is Jeaux King up to here in Vegas, right? You live in Vegas.
I do.
So tell me what you've been doing on and off stage that's really been fun or challenging or hard, anything real.
Well, parenting is always hard. Even in the good times, it can be hard because you want to make sure that it's a good time for them as well. Or at least I do as a parent. I feel like a lot of times we go off of our own emotions and don't recognize that we're raising little humans, right? We expect our children to be convenient for us, and we're not even convenient for us. You know, the things that we have to do on a daily are not convenient, and the emotions that we feel based on some of those regular everyday things, such as traffic or being cut off, right, when we're driving, or the grocery store not having enough people to check us out. Now we're here for 2 hours and we were only supposed to be here for 15 minutes. We have things that don't bring us joy, right? And our children have those things as well. So learning to gentle parent. I'm a first generation gentle parent, and communicate with my kids has been an interesting journey, a hard one, but a really, really fun one. I've learned so much about them just by letting them continue to talk. I used to cut them off in the middle of their sentences because I felt like I already knew what they were going to say, or I wasn't interested in what they wanted to say. And in just taking a beat and taking a pause and listening to what it is that they are trying to convey, I've learned some awesome things about my kids. I have some very, very brilliantly bold, creative, funny children. And not to toot my own horn, but it makes sense, you know, that they are as amazing as they are. But I realized that I was so busy trying to build a good life for them, that I wasn't fully present, you know, when it came to just enjoying where they are in this moment. I'm trying to make sure they have everything that they need. And one of the things that they needed was just mommy, you know, being present. So that was a fun lesson. It was a hard one, but a fun one. And I'm enjoying, you know, just spending time with my kids. I miss them right now because they're gone for the summer. They're with my parents for the summer. But
may I ask how many children,
yeah,
what ages, what sexes do they identify with, and where's grandma that they're at?
Absolutely. So I was born and raised in Texas. So they're in Texas right now. And I have 3 living children. I have birthed 4. I lost my first son in 2014 to SIDS. But my living children are, Dakota will be 11 on the 30th in just a couple days. Legend just turned 7, and Legacy is 5.
I love their names.
Thank
What
you.
inspired you to have such beautiful names?
Well, Lyndon's name actually, well, I call her Dakota because that's her middle name, but Lyndon's name actually came to me in a dream. Her name was supposed to be Bailey. Her father and I had decided that Bailey was her name. It was the cutest name ever. And meanings are very important in my family when it comes to the meaning of the name. And Bailey just simply meant like bailiff or something, like bossy or bailiff. And I was like, I'm not sure I want to, you know, instill that in her life, even though bossy can be. I'm actually writing a children's book right now called Don't Call Me Bossy. But bossy, especially when it comes to women, is kind of an aggressive word to me. Anyway, her name was supposed to be Bailey, and I worked at a daycare at the time, and I worked in the newborn section. And she's my first child. So I was working in the newborn section. I'm loving on all these babies. I'm just so excited, and also preparing for my first baby girl, and we're getting all of her stuff. I'm so excited. But also I'm like 7 months pregnant. So I'm tired like all the time. And during their nap time, I'm supposed to be cleaning the room and whatnot. And I got tired. So I sat down in the little rocking chair and ended up falling asleep while I'm at the daycare at work on the clock, sleep, me and the babies, and knocked out. And in my dream, I had already had my daughter, and it was an all white room. It was a white crib, everything in it was white, but I could hear her crying. And in my dream, I walked up to her and I picked her up and I held her, and I was just singing to her and kissing her on her forehead and having a moment with her. And then I could hear my name being called. And it turns out it was actually my supervisor at my job calling me to wake me up. She was standing at the door calling my name. But it like incorporated itself into my subconscious in my dream. And when I kissed the baby to put her down, I called her my baby girl, Lyndon. Before that, I had never heard the name Lyndon outside of the president. But I fell in love with that name almost instantly, immediately. And I Googled what it meant, and it meant beauty, immeasurable beauty. and messenger of Christ, like messenger of God. And I was like, I love that. I love that meaning. I love the name. I rolled off the tongue. I love it. I love it. And when my husband came to pick me up, I wouldn't let it go. I was like, it's Lyndon. Her name is Lyndon. And da-da-da. He was just like, I thought we picked Bailey. You know, he was like, okay, you seem really excited about it. Let me marinate on it, because he didn't really feel it at first. And a couple days went by and he was talking to my belly and he said the name Lyndon accidentally, like just from his subconscious. And he was like, damn, that's her name. He was like, that's her name. So that's how my baby girl got her name. And it's just always been a dream of mine from when I was little that all of my children have the same initials. So I knew all of the rest of my children were going to have L names. So when I found out about 6 months, maybe 5 months after I had my daughter, that I was pregnant yet again with my first son, we named him Logan Dominic. And he passed away at 2 months and 5 days old.
I'm so sorry. Let me just say that.
Well, thank you for that. I took him to the hospital because he was breathing funny, but I was a new mom and I just had children back to back, so they kind of dismissed it and told me babies just breathe funny sometimes. And then I took him home, and 2 days later he passed away since he stopped breathing in his sleep. So that was really, really hard. It took me into one of the deepest depressions I've ever had in my life, right? And I decided I didn't want any more children. I was like, I'm not having any more. Like, I never want to go through that pain again. I loved him with all of me. I can't, I even had a fear of continuing to love my daughter as hard as I had been loving them, out of the fear of losing her. It's just always been my, maybe it's an abandonment issue or whatever, I feel like all comics have a traumatic past, right? We all have something that happened that just kind of, it was a trauma response, and we chose to laugh from there on out. Like, nothing could be worse than that, right? So when I found out that I was pregnant with my son, Legend, I am pro-life for myself, but I've always been pro-choice for women, period, for them to make their own choices. And I would say that was the first time I had ever questioned whether or not I was fully pro-life for myself, because I was like, I do not want any more children. I don't want any more children. And I remember calling my mom when I found out that I was pregnant with him, and I wasn't the happiest, and I was crying, and I'm telling her, all of the fears that I have, like, I can't lose another kid and blah, 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 blah. And she just, my mom is a woman that is very deeply rooted in her faith, and I'm grateful for that. She was like, first of all, the energy that you're putting into it right now is already wrong, and I don't want that energy on my grandbaby. Right? She's like, so if you do decide to bring his life forth, I want him to be brought into this world with love and joy and excitement, and the same excitement we had for every other baby you brought into this world. I don't want that cloud on you of what if. She's like, what if he's great? Okay. She's like, what if he's amazing? What if he's absolutely healthy? What if he's brilliant? What if he has your creativity? What if he's, talented? And she just started speaking all of these positive what ifs to my one negative what if fear. Right. So I decided from there on, oh, it's 11:11. Look at that, spirit. I decided from that moment on that I was going to name my children names that I wanted people to speak into them. So just by saying their name, even if you're angry at my son, even if you don't like my sons, even if you are trying to put negative spirits, whatever, on my son, when you call his name, you are calling him what he is meant to be. My son's names are Legend and Legacy. So even when you don't like me, you are speaking life into who I am because of the name that my mom chose for me, right? So that's kind of how they got their names. I decided from that moment on, I was like, no matter what, no nicknames, as far as other people, you call them by their names. It is Legend and Legacy, because even when you have malice in your heart or in your intent, you are speaking to, powerful humans that I have birthed. So that is how they got their names, my beautiful babies. Thank you for asking that.
Oh, such a beautiful story. So tell me about the meaning of, you've chosen to go by Joe King. Tell me the meaning of that and what happened to come up with that.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm so sad that a bunch of my stories have traumatic beginnings, but they end so well.
You have no idea all the trauma I have.
Really?
So, yeah,
Okay.
Go ahead.
So my legal name is Jordan, and the way my mom spells it is with a U and a Y in it. So it's Jourdyn, and my name means strong, vigilant, and able to overcome. Now, I think when she named me that as a Black woman, she wanted me to persevere. The issue with naming someone something that has those meanings, just like bailiff meaning Bailey meaning bailiff and bossy, is you kind of call things that make them that into their lives, right? So in order for me to be strong, I have to be put in a position to show that I am strong, right? You don't just wake up and it's like, oh, she looks strong. That's not how that works. So I've been through things that forced me to be strong, right? In order for me to be vigilant, I have to face rejection. I have to face things that force me to push through. So I've had a lot of situations in my life that I have had to push through. It wasn't an easeful, existence. So anyway, so that's my name. My name is Strong, Vigilant, and Able to Overcome, but I am grateful that everything that I have been faced with, I have overcome. When I went to college, everyone started calling me Joe, and I met this guy named, well, his real name wasn't Alaska. His name was John Price. But in Mississippi, everybody has a nickname. Nobody calls you by your first name. And if they do, it's because you're in trouble. So everybody started calling me Joe and 6'2" because that's my height. So everybody knew me by either Joe or 6'2", and it was just J-O at that time. And John actually changed it to Jeaux, Alaska. We became really good friends. He would invite me and my cousin over all the time. We would cook for him, or he would try to cook for us. We would play video games. We just drink. We weren't supposed to be drinking, but we would just drink and have us a good time. And he was known all over campus. He was one of those alumni that would come with the shirt all painted, face painted, and just bring everybody together. And he was such a joy to be around. And we went out one day. We went to the club. We went to a college party, had so much fun. It was one of the Divine Nine. So I don't know if it was the Kappa's party or the Q Dog party or what it was, but we went and we had a grand time, right? And I had class the next day. Alaska did not. So I found a ride home. I found a ride home early, and he stayed at the club. And around 3 a.m., I got a call from one of my friends. It was actually my ex-boyfriend who had called me, and he was like, "Hey, did you hear about Alaska?" And I'm like, "Hear about him? Like, I was just with him like 2 hours ago. What are you talking about?" He was like, "No, he just, the ambulance are with him. He just got hit by a car." So Alaska did not have a car. And he lived down the street from the campus and from all of our parties. So he usually walked or rode his bike to get there. And this particular night, he was drunk. The driver was drunk. Everybody, it was just college students everywhere. No one should have been drinking, like I said, but we were. And she lost control of her will, and he was on the side of the road, and she hit him, and the ambulance came, and he was dead on arrival. And he was always the one that spelled my name this way and told me that because I was from the South, I needed to embrace my Southern roots and spell my name the Southern way. He was like, "No, you're from the South. This is the Creole way. And you have Creole in your blood." And I was like, "And I do have Creole in my blood." He's like, "So it's not just Joe, not just J-O. Anybody can be J-O. You got to be Joe." And he used to he's like, "You're a star." And he would just encourage me so much. And he's like, "Nope." Whenever anybody would spell it J-O, he was like, "Nope, you got to spell it this way." And he was always correcting it. And it was annoying to me at first. I was like, "No, because nobody knows how to spell that. Nobody knows how to do this. You're going to confuse people, blah, 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 blah." And then when he passed, I became very adamant that no, y'all need to spell it the Jeaux way because I'm Creole and I'm from the South. And it was just kind of like paying homage to him and our inside joke and just how he loved on me with me being so young. So now it's still Joe Parks, but I spell it that way specifically to pay homage to my old friend Alaska.
I love that. And where did the king come from?
It's a play on words because I'm a comedian. So Joe King.
Oh, duh.
Yeah.
I am a boomer. I should have gotten the wordplay.
Just wordplay. My name on social media used to be "I'm Just Joking," so that people would automatically get the name. But I've changed it since then to my business.
I love that. That's amazing. I've seen you destroy on stage when you're in the moment. I saw you at Black 11 Entertainment one time, and you brought the house down there. And then I saw you at the LA Comedy Club when you were hosting for the military show. So now let's go into the military. In a minute, we'll go into your childhood and early adult and into comedy, but I'm a veteran, you're a veteran. Let's talk everybody's heard my stuff over and over. I want to hear all about your military. So you're walking around growing up, bam, you're in the military. What made you do that? And when was it? What'd you do? I want everything answered.
So it was just me being irresponsible, really. Um, as I just stated, I lost a good friend in college. I wasn't going to my classes as consistently as I needed to. So I ended up getting placed on academic probation while I was in college because I was partying a lot more than I was going to school. Yeah. So at the end of that semester, we would have had to pay basically for me to start school all over. Like that first year was almost no good. I only got like 6 credits. And they were in the classes that I really, really enjoyed, like psychology and sociology and broadcasting. Those 3 classes passed with flying colors. All of my actual prereqs, I did not, right? Because I wasn't going. So my parents were a little disappointed, and they were like, you're going to pay for your own, year then this next year so that you can see how it costs to do that. And I had never had a real job before or anything like that to know how to pay for it. So I kind of sat back, and one of my friends who I went to college with was in the military and going to college. And I was like, how are you able to do that? And he was like, well, I joined National Guard. He was like, but as soon as I graduate, I automatically go in active duty from here. He goes, so I go in with my degree and then I can become an officer. And I was like, just the way he explained it. I said, so you leave college like already with a full-time job? And he was like, yeah. I was like, that sounds amazing, right? So at the time I was just 18. So of course that sounded amazing. Like I don't have to try for a job. They just give me one. Yeah, so he was the one that connected me with a recruiter. And at the time, I thought I was going in the Air Force. My dad told me to go in the Air Force because it would be easier. That was his opinion. And I tried to go in the Air Force. Apparently, everyone knew that going Air Force was easier because the wait time to go into the Air Force was like 1.5 years at that time. And I was like, I don't really have 1.5 years, So I looked into the Army, and the Army had stuff leaving as soon as like 2 months. They were like, we can get you out. Get you out there. So I was like, okay, well, then I'll do the Army. And I originally was going to go National Guard and changed my mind somewhere within there. So I ended up going active. Once being active for a while, I came out and was like, how do we just redo paperwork to send me to a station? But that's how I ended up getting into it. College I was mature enough. I was not responsible enough. I wasn't disciplined enough. Self-disciplined enough to continue with school. And yeah, that's how I ended up joining the Army. As far as my Army experiences, I have always been individualistic, and the Army tries to break that, right? The Army wants you to be a part of a team. They want you to think collectively or not think at all. Like, let us think for you and just do what it is that we asked you to do, right? And I've never been that. I've never been that person. I've never had that ability. So a lot of people, but I have always been determined, that a lot of people thought, I wouldn't necessarily say they thought I was going to fail, but they thought like it was going to be a really difficult thing for me to join the military because I'm not bossy, but I'm a boss, right? So I'm a leader. I have great leadership skills. So joining the military, I had a determination to prove to them that, one, I could make it through it, because everyone was like, they gonna send you home. Like, you don't listen to anybody. So they didn't think I was going to make it through basic training. But then once I made it through basic training, I was determined to prove to not only them, but to my other soldiers that I was a great leader. And I did do that. My first sergeant called me the stallion of the group. He was like, y'all aren't going to break her easily. Just put her in a leadership position already so that she can learn how difficult it is to be a leader in this job. He was like, just telling her to do push-ups or making her, do all these workouts or yelling at her isn't going to work. He was like, I don't think she cares, if I'm being honest. And I remember walking in on this conversation with him and a couple of my drill sergeants who were asking, like, what do we do with her? He was like, it's not going to work. She doesn't care. He was like, you yell at her, she doesn't care. He was like, you put her in front leaning arrest, she doesn't care. You tell her to do these push-ups, she doesn't care. He goes, but did you notice that when we went to the shooting range and one of her battle buddies was struggling with shooting, she cared? And they were like,
that's chills. Like, that
right.
Just gave me chills.
Yeah, that's what he said. He said when her battle buddies were struggling with their shots, she cared. When we were running and we were saying that anybody who fell out of the line was going to get sent home, and we looked up and 2 soldiers had fallen out of line, she cared, right? He was like, you saw her fall out of line and go get those 2 soldiers because she didn't want them to fall behind. He goes, you break that one by putting her in charge. And he was right. I wasn't even thinking about that, but he was very much so right. Once he put me over the platoon, we were thriving. We were amazing. I got along with everybody. All of the stuff that they thought was just so difficult for me wasn't anymore. And it's because I had questions. The Army doesn't like for you to ask questions. They want you to do what it is they ask you to do, the way they explained it, and just do it. And I was like, but why? It's just my personality. I was like, why? Because wouldn't it be easier if we just, and they didn't want that at the time. Right. So putting me in the leadership position where other people were asking, well, why, made it a little bit more annoying because they didn't tell me why. So now I can't explain to you why. And I understood why it was so annoying for me to do it because they didn't have the answer either. Wow. Right. So I was like, oh, I get it now. And he was right. He was like, the way that that's a stallion. The way that you do that with that soldier is you put her in charge of something. And he was very much so right. So I ended up being in leadership almost my entire military career.
So did you go in as an officer?
I did not. I ended up working my way through. So I was a PFC when I joined the military, and I worked my way up to sergeant first class.
Nice. In the Army. I was E0 when I went in, and I came out as an E5 soft stripe.
Okay.
So yeah. I was just a finance cashier, and that's not hard for me because, well, I'm Jewish. Put me near the money. That's right.
I was in intelligence, but I ended up getting stationed in Camo. So I was a 25 Bravo, which was a computer specialist. And then I got transferred to intelligence. And then from there, I was pregnant when both times that my unit deployed. So I ended up getting sent to a recruitment unit, and that's how I became a recruiter. And that was probably the most fun that I had in the military as a whole, was being a recruiter. I got to interact with young kids in high school, interact with young college students. I could talk about my job whenever I wanted. I could tell them all of the pros and the cons. And I think a lot of people enjoyed me being a recruiter because I didn't do the sugarcoating that a lot of recruiters do. Yeah. A lot of recruiters only tell you the good and, oh, you'll get to travel. And I'm like, yeah, you'll get to travel, but nowhere that you want to go. Like I was that recruiter. To travel, but nowhere that you want to go. Like they give you options and they make you feel like you chose that space. When in reality, if I ask you where you want to go right now, you might say Jamaica. But if I say, do you want to go to Germany or Korea? Well, you didn't want to go to either of those places. You wanted to go to Jamaica, right? They make you feel like you had a choice because they gave you the two places they wanted you to pick, right? Exactly. I was like, so that's what they mean when they say that you get to travel, love. Don't think that, oh, they're going to pay for me to go on vacation with my friends. That's not what this is. So breaking that down to young people so that they fully had an understanding and they could be mentally disciplined before they actually joined the military and not feel lied to was important to me.
So important. So important. Yeah. What city were you a recruiter in?
Tennessee.
Tennessee. So my ex-husband was a military recruiter. And I remember getting out of the military and coming back to America from Germany and going to Vancouver, Washington, where he was going to be a recruiter in 1976. And they took me in with all the bosses, like the commanding officer and all the monkey monks. And I'm sitting there and they're telling me, you're not in the military anymore. You got out. He's in the military. You're the wife. He gets to do whatever he wants. If we say he needs to be out doing recruiting work till 2 a.m, that's what you're going to put up with. Sure enough, that's what happened. I didn't see that train coming. I should have walked out of that meeting and said over my dead body. But so my marriage didn't even stand a chance. He caved into the pressure and he was out every night. So how did the military affect you and your relationships?
Well, I don't necessarily, I was gonna say, I don't know if the military was what caused the breakdown of my marriage. One, losing our son was very difficult to deal with. My daughter looks just like me, but my son looked just like him, and looking at his face was a lot every morning. Just waking up to him was a lot every morning. And I didn't know how to communicate that because I did not know this until after I had left him. But apparently he had a conversation with my biological father, whom I no longer speak to. But he had a conversation with my biological father and a few of the men in my family who told him not to break down when we lost our son. They told him not to show his emotions and that he just needed to be present for me to break down and for me to show my emotions. What none of the men in my family knew or recognized was that in that moment, I needed my husband to break down. I needed to know that my husband cared about our baby just like I did. I needed to know that he was hurt and that he was confused and that he was, broken too. Like, we did nothing to deserve this. We did everything right. He was breastfed. He, had everything that he needed. We bought all of this. They were spoiled as all get out, both of our children. And I was like, we did everything right as young parents, right? And we had a great village for him. My family was a great, I felt like I had been attacked and I didn't know why. And I also felt like the only people that were supporting me was my family, because my husband had become this stoic statue of a person. Instead of telling me he was hurt too, he just kind of stood there and kept going back to work and doing what he was doing like he was okay. And I was like, what's wrong with you? Like, this robot. And like I said, I had slipped into one of the biggest depressions of my life after losing my son. So I felt like I didn't know my husband anymore. And I felt like he wasn't there for me. So that in itself was causing strain. But also, we got married really, really young. We got married at night. I was 19, he was 20. He had not lived he had not felt that he had gotten to live the young person's life or whatnot, but he knew that he wanted to be with me. So he chose to get married, even though there were things he still wanted to experience, I guess, with women. And that played a major factor in our marriage as well, because there were plenty of red flags showing that he was entertaining elsewhere, but still wanted the home life of a family, have your cake and eat it too type situation. And I'm not that. I'm not built for that.
Me neither.
I'm not built for that. So yeah, I packed up me and my baby girl and we got out of Dodge. And he tried for a little bit to get us to come back home and whatnot, but I still didn't trust him at that point. And then also I had, like I said, I still had my reservations from the way that he responded to our son passing. I couldn't heal from that. So at that time, I wouldn't necessarily say it was the military that broke us down. I think it was just a lack of discipline on our end, a lack of commitment, and then a really serious trauma before we got the chance to fully get into our marriage well.
Absolutely. I appreciate the honesty. So let's get in a DeLorean right now and go further back in time, back to we're going to go back in time and then come back to the future at the end, but back in time, little Jordan, what were you like as a little kid? I've heard how you're loving on your children. What was your little childhood at home like, growing up, grade school, high school?
Well, like I said, I'm a first generation gentle parent. So I got ass whoopings, but I was curious. I was a very curious little girl. I had questions about everything. And I've always had a leadership personality. Like I've always had well, let's do this instead, or, well, the smarter way to do this is this. And my daughter reminds me so much of myself. I remember going to pick her up from school and a teacher stopped me because she was like 6. A teacher stopped me and she was like, I'm sorry, how old is your daughter? And I was like, she's 6. So she was like, so she's in pre-K. And I was like, no, she's in first. And she was like, first. She goes, she was just talking to a 3rd grader. We have her over here with the 3rd graders because I thought she was in the wrong class. And I was like, oh, I was like, she's really smart. She goes, no, well, yes. She said she was doing a puzzle with a 3rd grader and the little girl wanted to do the middle of the puzzle first. And I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. And she goes, and your daughter explained that to her. She goes, but it's the word choicing that she chose at 6 years old. She said, we've got to put the corners together so that we can make a better picture, complete the picture. And the 3rd grader was like, well, I want to, just put the picture together in the middle and then we can do the corners. She said, your 6-year-old daughter stood up and said, okay, well, this is no longer a productive, what did she say? This is no longer a productive use of my time. Wow. So I'm going to go over there. And she stood up and she walked away. And she said that me and all the other teachers were like, what? Like just the verbiage that she chose to use in that moment was way advanced to be 6 years old. And I was like, well, that's how I speak to them. I was like, that's how I talk to my kids. My kids, I don't change my language to baby words or to baby language because you're 6 years old. You know, you're a child, but if you have a question and you don't understand a word that I use, then ask me what that word is. I will explain it to you, and then we can use it in a sentence so that you can now start using it. But I'm not getting ready to, oh my God, to talk to my children, because nobody talks like that as adults, right? So,
Nobody.
right. So their vocabularies are amazing, phenomenal. But I was the same way when I was younger, because my grandmother and my mother and my aunt all speak very well. My aunt is now a motivational speaker and a business coach, multi-million-dollar company. She talks to all of these different moguls in the world, right? That's her calling. That's what she does. She's very good at it. Her name is Allison Bird. And she just has this way with words. But with me growing up, my grandmother would stop me in the middle of my sentence, and she knew that I love talking. I love just talking about my day and telling everything. If I said a word that wasn't a word, like I remember I said the word like did, because that's the words that they used at the school that I was going to. All the other kids like, oh, I really liked it, that, right? And I remember using that language in the home with my grandmother, and she stopped me in the middle of my sentence and she was like, that's not correct. That's already plural. I mean, that's already past tense, right? So she's like, liked is it? There is no extra ed on there. There's no this. And she just kind of broke it down for me and broke down the way that those words are. And she gave me a few other words. I can't think of any by example, but other 4-letter words that end in E. She was like, you wouldn't say I biked it, down the street, right? She goes, you wouldn't say I did this, that, and other, or to help me understand why the word was incorrect. And yeah, I do the same thing with my children now. But I think that's another reason why I'm so good with words, with communication, because I can pick out my synonyms to make sure that it's something that's easily palatable for the person that I'm speaking to. I was very, like I said, I was very curious. I was very energetic. My mom tells me stories every now and then when I'm telling her something that my kids have done that just completely, caused me to have a big emotion, right? And she's like, oh yeah, I remember when you took my favorite lipstick and drew all over our brand new white couch. With it, she was like, and I had to send you to your grandmother to keep me from snapping out on you. And I was like, I don't, she's like, yeah, you drew me a really pretty picture. She goes, and you were so proud of that picture, and you came and you got me to come and show me the picture, and you had drawn it on our brand new white couch in my lipstick. It was like a burgundy color lipstick too. It would not come out. She couldn't get it off the couch. It was a new couch. It had just been delivered like maybe 3 days prior. She was heartbroken. And I'm pretty sure I got my butt whooped for that. But she'll tell me these stories, and I'll tell her about crazy stuff my kids have done. And I kind of have to take a moment and step back and remember that I was once a kid and I did these crazy things too. So I was energetic. I was very bright. I was smart. Growing up in Texas and growing up in the South, like I said, as a first generation gentle parent, other people were allowed to spank you when I grew up. So like if you were outside acting up and they knew your parents, you knew that those people were allowed to whoop your butt. And then they would walk you to your parents to tell them that they whooped your butt, right? So
and you get another whooping.
Exactly. Then you get another whooping by the people who live in your house, right? So I grew up with a respect for authority, but I also grew up with such a respect for myself, to where if I knew that I was right, if I knew with my entire being that I was right, I would stand up to that spanking. And I think that's when my adults kind of started to realize something was different about me, because other kids would take their whooping, they'd be sad, they may, go into their room and talk their mess or say something to their other cousins or their siblings or whatever, like, I didn't deserve that. I was the one that told you I didn't deserve that, and you were going to have to work for this whooping because I'm not taking it freely, right? Like I was a kid that would like try to grab the belt and be like, no, because I'm right. I'm correct, right? So I think they knew, my family knew that, one, I was going to do great things, but they also knew that I was a fighter. When it comes to right is right and wrong is wrong, I'm not necessarily someone who believes in the black and the white. I definitely believe in giving grace. But if you intentionally are doing something wrong, I have always been the one who will call you out on that.
Yes, that's like me. I'll do that in a heartbeat. In
Yeah.
a heartbeat. Like,
Mhm.
don't even think you can fool it just because I'm old and so sweet.
Mhm.
Yeah, you better,
Don't
you're
underestimate
surprised.
my kindness. Yeah. That
Yeah.
as well. I hated bullies.
Me too.
Growing up, I had a great leadership personality, but I absolutely hated bullies. Most of my best friends of today are people that I stood up for when we were kids, and we all just kind of stuck together from that moment on. That and also, I was tall. I grew up in the underrepresented and underprivileged side of town. So I knew how to fight. You know, my mom got a great job. My grandparents got great jobs, and we moved out of that area to a suburban area, maybe upper middle class area. But that didn't change the fact that I grew up there and I had already learned what I had learned. So when we moved to those suburban areas and I would see bullies or whatnot, they couldn't fight like the kids at the school that I just came from could, right? So they learned very quickly not to mess with me or my friends. And it's easier to join them than to beat them. And I ended up becoming friends with a lot of people who had those, tendencies, and the people who had the tendency to kind of shrink. And we all ended up kind of becoming a group. I ended up bringing people together accidentally. These out of loving me for protecting them, and these kind of out of fearing me for protecting them. And we all kind of became a social group. And I kind of just, I don't know, I've always been somebody who could bring and relate to multiple different kinds of people. Um, because at the end of the day, most of us all want the same things. We're all looking for connection. We're all looking for friends, especially at that age. We're kids. We're all looking to be loved and have fun and whatnot. So why are you messing that up for us? Like, what? Why would you do that? And I think my teachers started to appreciate that because I've always been a teacher's pet, accidentally, because it wasn't a like I want to be a teacher's pet. It was teachers would see me and be like, oh, Joe makes the day kind of flow a little bit easier when it comes to stuff like that. But I made the day a little bit harder because I always questioned everything. So
Absolutely. So in your life, you're going through grade school and high school and you're corralling people together and you're standing up for what's right. And so then how is it that you went to college for a number of different things, including broadcasting? You've gone and accomplished things in broadcasting, and then comedy. Talk about broadcasting and comedy, please.
well, I have always loved being in front of a camera. I've always felt like I was supposed to be seen by millions and millions of people. Like everybody needs to know who I am. I feel like I have spiritual friends and family and just cosmic connections all over, and I want to find them all. Right. So when it came to broadcasting, I thought that I was going to be a reporter, right? But I wanted to be like a criminal psychiatrist reporter, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I grew up watching Law and Order, and they had Dr. Wong on Law and Order SVU. He was a small Asian man who just broke down the tendencies and the mentality and like could explain. He could what's it called when they describe someone before even meeting them. Crap, I can't remember what it's called, but he would be able to describe the type of person that they're looking for, right?
Modus operandi, MO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he'd be able to describe profile. That's the word I was looking for. He would be able to profile criminals before they even got to meet the criminal, which would help them find the criminal. And then when they found the criminal, he would interview the criminal to kind of get into their psyche. And I've always been super interested in the way the human mind works, the way the human mind and human emotions work, because it's all based on memory. All humans are operating every day based on their memory. And I think that it's so amazing to someone actually did an experiment with me the other day, and he was like, look at everything around the room. So if you're looking at your computer right now, Linda, and you look at the webcam, and then you look at the screen, and you look at the keyboard, you look at the mouse, look at the webcam, look at the keyboard, look at the mouse, and you go quicker, it will be harder to speak what it is you're looking at, because what you're registering in your mind is based off of memory, not off of what's actually in front of you. Right. So if you're looking very quickly at something, the only reason you're still saying those words is because you know from before you started looking quickly what it was. If you automatically went into it and you were looking at it that quickly, you'd be like, wait, slow it down so that I can see what I'm looking at, because you weren't living in the moment in the first place. We all operate, and we know this is a cup based off of memory. Who told us it was a cup? Who says, whatever. It might be a stand now, put something on top of it. It could be whatever you want it to be, but you remember it as a cup, right? So knowing that the human brain usually is not living in the present, I found that so interesting, right? Even growing up, I've always wanted to know how our emotions work. So once I started realizing that most people are living off of memory, I realized that a lot of conversations that we're having, although we're having them in the moment, you're going to react to me or respond to me based on your memory, which is why sometimes we can say something that offends someone and we have no idea how it offended you, but it's because you're offended based on something from your memory. It's a trigger for you from your childhood, from your college, from the way your husband speaks to you, or from the way your sister used to speak to you, or something of that nature. It has nothing to do with me. But in this moment, what I said resembled what they've said or how they've made you feel, and it was a trigger for you. You're responding off of memory, not off of what just happened, right? So when I realized that, I started choosing my words. I was already really good with my vernacular, but I started choosing my words a little bit more carefully. And then I'm also the person who likes to go into those things and just say, you seemed a little triggered by that. You want to explain why? Because sometimes they don't realize why they're triggered. So do you want to explain why? And then when they start explaining it and breaking it down, I just kind of poke at it a little bit and ask more questions. Well, I didn't say that though. What I said was this. Why did this trigger you? Because what you just described as for why you're mad doesn't go with what I just said. And then we start peeling those layers back and they're able to realize, you know what? It wasn't even you. It was this, that, and the other. And I'm like, all right, now we've gotten somewhere. Let's start at the beginning, shall we? So I kind of became a psychiatrist or a psychologist accidentally, but I love being able to help people get to the root of themselves, right? And just be present. So that's what I thought I was going to do with broadcasting. I thought I was going to work with the mentally ill or with the psychotic, and then be able to write books and report on the human existence. That's where I started, what I wanted to do. And, life happened and other things happened. I'm still able to have those psychological conversations with people on a daily, but I never became a psychologist. I never got that discipline to go back to school and finish that degree.
I just like it in my machinery.
No worries. And then I would say, as far as how I got into comedy, it was on my bucket list of things to do. People have always found me funny. I don't get emotional as quickly as most anymore. I find a lot of things funny, especially after all of the things that I've been through. Like I said, it's really difficult to like offend me or like, oh my God, you hurt my feelings. I've been through so much stuff. I barely feel that anymore, when somebody says something crazy. So it's always been on my bucket list. And I've always been really good at making people laugh in like fucked up situations. Like it could be a whole funeral. I can still make people laugh in here, kind of situation. So it was on my bucket list of just things to try. I wanted to see what it would feel like to get on stage and tell some of my life stories and see if people, if everybody laughed or just the people who knew me would laugh, right? And another thing on my bucket list, since I am an author, was to meet Maya Angelou, who inspired me to write poetry when I was younger. I was a little bitty girl when my grandmother gave me one of Maya Angelou's books of poetry. And it was on my bucket list. And I finally decided I was coming out of a depression. I won't say I suffer, but I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And I was coming out of a depressive episode. And I was like, you know what? I want to do something nice for myself. I'm committed to doing something that contributes to me, my livelihood, and what I want to be. I want to be a great author. I want to be on TV. I want to be, blah, 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 all of these things. And it was on my bucket. Maya Angelou was having a book signing, and I still had the book that my Gagi had given me when I was little of her poetry book. And I was like, I'm buying tickets. I'm going to her book signing. Like she's gonna sign my book. I was so excited. I had it on my little stand. I was like, I'm going. I bought the tickets. I'm going. And 2 weeks before that book signing, Maya Angelou passed away. And I remember feeling so defeated, like, oh my God, I was finally getting ready to do something for myself. I just came out of this depression. Nothing ever happened, just really emotional about it, because I had been excited for a while, and I spent a good grip on that ticket to go to it. So of course they reimbursed us the money or whatnot, but I realized in that moment that the things on my bucket list weren't going to wait for me. All of these big dreams that I had and all of these wonderful talents that I have that I wanted people to see, it wasn't going to wait, right? People's lives are moving on. The entertainment industry is moving on. Like, stuff is happening, girl. You either get with it or sit down somewhere. You're going to be the call center all your life, right? Like, what do you want to do? So I decided in that moment that I wanted to move. I wanted to leave Texas. Again, not with the military, just go anywhere I hadn't been before that had a good comedy scene or a good acting scene. So of course I was looking at New York and California, Atlanta, Vegas, and there was one other place I was looking at the time. I had just gotten into a new relationship, and it was my first lesbian relationship at the time. So we had only been together maybe 3 or 4 months, maybe 4 months, when I told her I was moving. And she was like, well, move to Houston, because that's where she was. I'm in San Antonio. Houston was only about 2.5, 3 hours away. She's like, move to Houston. We can move in together. We can figure this out. And again, we had only been together a few months. And I was like, I really want to leave Texas though. But we started looking for houses in Houston, and I was like, okay, I wasn't really committed. It wasn't on my heart, but I was like, okay, it's not San Antonio and it's got a good scene. Houston's got an okay scene. Let's see what's going on, right? But I feel like that was just spirit, because none of the houses were looking the way that I wanted them to look. We had a completely different budget set on what we could afford. She made about half the amount of money that I made at that time. So her budget was different. And we looked at some of those houses, and I have children. She did not have children. So she could, do a little bit more with her freedom. And she wasn't worried about school districts and all of that good stuff. She was like, we can just, we can drive them to a different school. And I was like, no, that's inconvenient for me. That's inconvenient. I don't want to do any of that. So we started looking at some of the in my opinion, better quality homes that were in better schools and whatnot. And it was going to be a little bit more expensive for her. And it just wasn't working out. Houston just wasn't working out. So I started looking again in other states. Cali was super expensive. New York was super expensive for the type of homes that I'm used to. I wanted at least a 4-bedroom. They expect you to drop at least $1 million.
Wow.
4-bedroom home coming from Texas, where I could have my 4-bedroom home and it was like $1,100. Going to a different state was like, y'all pay what, in rent for your home? So
wow,
that's actually how we ended up in Vegas. She loved Vegas, and she was like, well, what do you think about Vegas in comparison to California? It's not far. What do you think? And I was like, I've never been to Vegas, but let's look. We started looking at some houses, and we found some. We got approved almost immediately. It just kind of all fell together, and I felt like that's where I was supposed to be. And that's how we ended up in Vegas. And we had only been here maybe a few weeks when I was like, all right, it's time to get started on this bucket list. And comedy was one of the first things I wanted to do, outside of finally going to a Cirque du Soleil show.
yeah.
So we did that. We started knocking off the things that I've always wanted to do. I love theater. The things I always wanted to do. And then I was like, all right, it's time to try comedy. My girlfriend got me tickets to like a comedy tour bus. We got on there. He was funny. He was really nice. And when he ended the tour, I told him I was interested in comedy. And he said, what I would recommend is to just do it. And I was like, well, that's what I'm going to do. He said, Wise Guys does open mic on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. He was like, I recommend going online and signing up for the Wednesday one, because in my opinion, that one's better than just the open mic Tuesday one. He was like, sign up, see if you get in, tell him you're in town, and go try it out. And that's how it started. I signed up. I got in on Wise Guys that following week. So I only had a week to actually write material or whatever it is I was going to say on stage. I knew I didn't want to get up there and just wing it. And I worked on 2 jokes, because you only had 3 minutes. I worked on 2 jokes that whole week, and had committed to one. And the day that I was supposed to perform, I decided I wanted to go with the other one.
Wow.
Just the way my mind worked. The day I was supposed to perform, I decided I wanted to go with the other one and go with the military joke. And that was my very first time doing comedy. I stepped on stage and the crowd absolutely loved that joke. They were rocking with me. They were cracking up. Even the comics in the back were absolutely cracking up. And when I stepped off stage, everybody was clapping and giving me high fives. Like the comics like took me in the back and they were all talking to me. Are you new here? Like, where do you do comedy? Where are you from? You know, are you just in town for a little while? And I was like, nope, I just moved here. They're like, you live here? I have a show on Thursday. Can you come on Thursday? And I was like, they're like, yeah, can you come and do 15 minutes? 15 minutes? I was like, it took me a week to write that 3-minute joke. So I was scared, but I also live by this quote: say yes and figure it out, right? If it's something that I'm talented in, that I'm gifted in, and that I enjoy, and someone asks me to do it and they're going to pay me to do it, say yes and figure it the fuck out. And so I said yes, I can do 15 minutes. Let's do 15 minutes. And that's how I started getting booked for shows. I went and I did 15 minutes at Amir's 18 Bin show. And from there, I met Doc and Popeye and Naomi Starr, and they were like, oh my God, who is that girl? And from there, I just felt like every show that I do, somebody who is a little bit more advanced in that scene finds me, and they're like, come with me. Let me introduce you to this person. And I've been very grateful for that in the comedy, on the comedy scene.
Awesome. Who was the person on the comedy tour bus?
Oh, I wish I remembered his name. I actually found him on Facebook one day. And now I follow so many comedians. I don't know if it'll still pop up. Let me see if I can find him.
Because we owe him a big thank you. The Vegas scene owes him a big thank you for getting you out there.
Yes, he did. He put me right on out there with the dang it. I wish I could. Nope, it's just bringing up comedy bus tours. I'll have to find him. He was super amazing.
Was it to the Grand Canyon or was it just around town?
It was just around town. He drove me to, they drove us to the Welcome to Las Vegas sign for us to take pictures. And it was just a comedy bus tour to go and take pictures at the Las Vegas sign. And then they dropped us off at the South Point. I think they dropped us back off at South Point Hotel.
It wasn't Dan Hall, was it?
No.
Okay. Parker Ty. No, they go out to that crack in the earth, whatever that's the Grand Canyon. The crack in the earth. Is somebody in your room?
The dog is hollering. Hey.
So you got up and now you're getting invited to different places. And like I said, I saw you destroy at the OYO for the military show. You were fabulous. Fabulous.
That's where you laugh.
Thank you. I loved how you introduced me. Remember the getup I wore and I told you?
Yes, I do. That's some white people shit.
I wore part of the outfit last night.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I went on stage and I didn't wear that top part. I just took the cape and put it around my neck. It goes to the floor. So I got on stage and I said, I'm not a diva. Why does everybody keep thinking I'm a diva?
Oh, that's hilarious. That is hilarious.
That was fun. I love to mess with people. Like whatever you think about me, I'm going to destroy that because I hate labels.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I feel like we're all so many different things at so many different times that labels are limiting.
Yes, that's what I hate about it.
I don't know why my dog is yelping like that.
I didn't even hear it. Well, I think I better let you go, but please tell us where you're going to be performing and tell us where to find you on social media to help your numbers.
You can actually find me on social media at King. So King Me Comedy on all social media platforms, or you can just go to my website, which is now up and running, kingmecomedy.com. And it has all of my social media on there. So you can just click the links, as well as every Thursday at 4 p.m. I host a radio show called Laugh Therapy on Hot 702.5 FM. And I love Laugh Therapy because it is Laugh Therapy. We talk about taboo subjects that most people don't want to discuss, Or the people who are discussing them in such an aggressive manner that when you end the podcast, you either end feeling conflicted, or you end feeling argumentative, or you end feeling heavy. And we want to talk about all the things without you leaving feeling heavy. So we talk about mental health. We talk about racism. We talk about sexism. We talk about double standards in the industry. We talk about LGBTQ versus the church and Christians. We talk about religion. We talk about all of the things, and we talk about our personal stories with them. And most of the time, our personal stories have so much hilarity in them. So you don't feel heavy when you leave the show. You don't feel like you need to argue with anyone. It's a great conversation starter. And when we end, you can go and have those open conversations and have them lightly, right? You can have them without ego, without judgment, without pride, without anger, and just talk and understand we're going to agree to disagree, or we may actually find some common ground here, right? But you laugh throughout it because we share our personal stories, and most times they're often hilarious. So Laugh Therapy every Thursday at 4 Pacific. And then also on my website, King Me Comedy, I am selling merch and I'm super excited about it. I have my t-shirts on sale now. So guys, go support. And then you can catch me at LA Comedy, usually Thursdays and Sundays at the 10 p.m. show. And I also have my shows listed on my website so you can see where I'm coming up. I believe I have a show tomorrow. Let me see what time it is, so I'm not telling y'all the wrong stuff. I have a show tomorrow at the Soul Food Kitchen. This one is at Southern Express Soul Food Restaurant. The show does start, it's a pre-fight show. So show does start at 9 p.m. For those of you who are night owls and like to come out and have a good time. We've got a super funny lineup. So I'm really excited to be a part of this. But yes, Soul Food Express tomorrow at 9 is where you guys can catch me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, you guys. You've gotten to know her. KingMeComedy.com. Jeaux King, Jeaux King.
Yeah.
And follow her, get out and see her perform. You deserve a treat. And she is a treat and then some.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It was so fun doing this. And thank you for having me.
You betcha. Thank you so much. Bye. Love you lots.